Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today, I'd like to show you how to make a pattern called Brighter Side. This is a pattern from Cozy Quilt Designs, and it uses fat quarters. I've got a nice, colorful group here from Henry Glass called Nana May, and they're 1930s style fabrics, and they will look really good with a nice, clear white background. One nice thing about Cozy's patterns is they come with multiple sizes. I'm going to make the twin size, so it calls for 15 fat quarters. My bundle has 20, so I'm going to pick out ones that I like and use the rest for the binding. I'm going to set these aside and we'll use them later for binding. And these are what we'll cut our patchwork from. Now the pattern shows us two different methods for making half square triangles, and I'm going to show you both methods. The first one, we're going to cut some strips out of the prints, and we're going to cut some strips out of the background, and we're going to make some tubes. I have several of the strips here I'm taking to the sewing machine. I can't give you all the sizes because it's not my pattern, but Cozy Quilts Designs patterns, they're very, very easy to follow. The first thing I'm going to do is cut these background strips in half so that they're the same length as the fat quarter strips. Then we're going to make a tube with one background and one print and stitch down both sides using a 1/4 inch seam from the edge. Flip it around and stitch down the other side. And then do the same thing with these wider pieces. To cut these strips into squares, we're going to use something called the strip tube ruler. This is a template from Cozy Quilt Designs, and it's got all these lines marked, and we're going to use the 5.5 inch line, and we're going to put that on our wider strip set, our strip tube here. We're going to put that line on the stitching line, not on the raw edge, on the stitching line, and we're going to cut on both sides of the triangle. Now flip the template around, put the same 5.5 inch line on that stitching line on the top there, and cut another triangle. Now we're going to continue flipping and cutting, and every time we cut one of these, we get a half square triangle. On this smaller tube, we're going to use the 3 inch line. It's that solid line there. Again, I'm putting it on the stitching line and cutting both sides. And you may notice that there may be a little teeny bit of stitching still on the top there, but that will come right out. So I'm going to finish cutting the rest of the triangles out of this strip. Here's the small half square triangle. The advantage to using this method is it goes very quick and the pieces are cut exactly to the size you need. You know that is exactly 5.5 inches square. The downside is there's a little bit of waste, and this is all bias. It's bias the whole way, so you have to be a little careful when you iron it. You could possibly spray starch all of your pieces before you cut them. I personally don't like spray starch very much, but some people find it is very, very helpful. So the plus sides, it's very quick, it's very accurate. The downsides, there's a little bit of waste and you have to be careful to not stretch it. It's pretty easy to iron these squares. Put the light fabric down and then peel it open. That way the seam allowances will always go towards the darker fabric. These little pieces that stick off the end here, they're called dog ears. And I always like to trim those off so we have less bulk and the square is nice and neat. The second method involves cutting our fabric into squares the more traditional way of making half square triangles. So the sizes are different than we cut our first strips, but we'll get these cut out and I'll show you what to do next. I'm going to mark the back side of these squares right along the diagonal, and I like to use a light pencil line for these. Put one of the background squares on top of one of your printed squares, line everything up, and then stitch a 1/4 inch away from this line. We're going to stitch on both sides. My presser foot is almost a 1/4 inch wide, so I can just go right down the edge there and then spin it around to go down the other side. For the small squares, we'll use exactly the same method. All we have to do is cut right along that drawn line, and we will have 2 half square triangles from each of these. The advantage to making the half square triangles like this is that the grain is straight. The grain is straight both ways, and we were able to get 2 at a time, and there was literally no waste. The only downside is it's a little bit slower to make them this way than when we're doing the strip tubes. So you can definitely try both methods. You can even try both methods in the same quilt and see which method you like better. I've gone ahead and made all of the half square triangles. I'm going to take 2 of the big ones. We'll get 2 different colors, and then we'll get 8 of these little ones, and we'll head back to the machine. The block layout is really easy. We're going to point the dark colors, all of them, facing this way. So you can mess around with what fabric goes where so you have a nice color blend, but each block is facing exactly the same way with the color going towards this bottom corner. I think the easiest way to put this together is to put these 4 blocks together and put these 4 blocks together. So I'm going to slide them over here so they're a little closer to my sewing machine needle here, and we'll flip these 2 right sides together, stitch along this edge here, and we'll press the seam allowances in opposite directions. I'm going to press this bottom one toward the dark color there, and here is where you want to be a little careful because my little triangles here, they're all biased, so you have to be careful you don't stretch that seam. I'm finger pressing it, but I'm just pressing down on it, I'm not stretching it. Now when we put these 2 pieces together, the seam, the intersection in the middle there, the seam allowances are going in opposite directions, and it makes it really easy to get them matched. It's also very easy to sew with these pieces because they give a little because they are biased. So that is another benefit to using the squares from the tubes. And let's press this toward that darker color, again being a little careful that you don't stretch it. We're ready to put the block together. Let's put that right sides together, that right sides together. We'll slide them over here. And I'm going to press toward the dark color here. And for this seam, I'm going to press towards the light because we have all these intersections here, and that really wants to go that way. And I always like to finger press things in the directions they would like to go in. And that does have the effect of putting them opposite directions there. So this one will also be real easy to stitch up. That's the whole block. So I'm going to go ahead, we'll get these little threads trimmed off and make up all the rest of the blocks so we can get ready to lay this quilt out. The blocks are all done and we're ready to lay out the quilt. The layout's pretty easy. The first row, when you think of the color here, it's going to go down in the right corner. And the next block, it's going to go up in the right corner. So we're going to keep alternating that row, first row like that. Down to the right, up to the right. And I'm not going to worry about what color is where right now. I'm just going to put them in the correct rotation. The second row, it's just the opposite. We're going to go up to the left and then down to the left. And we're going to keep doing that for the whole second row. The third row is exactly the same as the first row, so you can always look down here to see which way to turn the pieces. There, that's the last block. And the colors are actually pretty well balanced throughout the quilt. The only trading I might do would be where I've got two blues coming together, and I actually like where I've got a little pinwheel of yellow here and here and here. I might trade around so that I have a few more of those yellow pinwheels. I think that looks pretty good. Sewing the rows together and getting the whole quilt will be real easy because the blocks are nice and big. And then I'm going to add the borders and then the whole top will be done. The brighter side quilt is all done. I made the twin size. It's 72 by 92. And the pattern does have instructions that go all the way up to a king. And I think it's 110 by 110 inches. I have blocks here, some of which are straight grain, mainly the big ones. And then these ones are all on the diagonal. They're all on the bias grain. But the quilt, even though it's not quilted yet, this is just the top, it's pretty flat. It was pretty easy to get flat, pretty easy to line everything up. And I love how I happened to get these pinwheels, these yellow pinwheels. I was able to turn the blocks so those pinwheels show up, and I think that brightens up the quilt quite nicely. I love this little skinny border on it. Then we've got a bigger border, so that gives you an opportunity to put a color on the outside, so it makes the quilt look more blue because we've got blue here. If you wanted more pink, you could put a pink border on. And this is a pattern that would look good in almost any color combination. Here's some options for thread colors, and you certainly could use solid white on. You certainly could use white on here. It wouldn't show in that solid white at all. The colors that I've got, they're all pretty pale, and I don't think any of them will fight with the patchwork. And I think I would probably go with this nice light yellow. One more thing I wanted to share with you. Remember the extra fat quarters we had? The bundle had more fat quarters than we needed, so I cut all these up, and this is going to be my binding. It's all compatible. It's the same colors that are in there, and I like having the binding with different colors. That will really frame the quilt quite nicely. Thanks so much for watching our video today. We hope you enjoyed it. Now at the end of each video, we like to do a giveaway. Today's giveaway is a shadow box quilt. This is from a collection of prints called Beachy Keen. We've got umbrellas, we've got balls, we've got some beach scenes here and seagulls. I think the back has the nice beach balls on it. This would make a great blanket to take if you're going to go to the river or go to the beach. It's very easy to enter the giveaways. All you do is click the link below this video that says giveaway and put in your name and your email address, and you might be the lucky winner. Now, if you like our tutorials and you want to support us, the best thing you can do is subscribe to our YouTube channel. That really helps us out. Happy quilting!